Recently, you spoke about Traditional Advaita and Neo-Advaita, and we put this on the podcast page. Can you describe again each of these paths?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I don't really know that much about Neo-Advaita. It's a term that I heard. I was not there at the birth of it. I don't know what they're talking about. But I've met some people who are allegedly practitioners of it. And if their attitude is anything to go by, if it is an accurate reference for Neo-Advaita, and then I say, my gosh, we have to talk a bit more, because they seem to be saying, well, there's nothing to do, there's nobody there to do it, so what's the point of even inquiry? Inquiry is a joke, because who is there to inquire? There's only the self. What does the self have to inquire? And I say, hey, hang on a second, slow down a little bit there. Who are you speaking? Who are you who is speaking? Are you the self? Well, there's only the self, there's not. I said, yes, we know the talk, I know the talk, and many people can speak like that, but something energetically does not sit right. You definitely feel like you're definitely a person saying that you're not a person. I thought, this is something very strange. Like, who do you convince like that? Who is convinced by such a talk? It sounds on paper very good. If Ramana Maharishi was speaking like that, and I'm saying not because he's just a name, but because I have read and listened to Ramana's teachings and found them thoroughly, what I'd call that they settle completely and confirm very powerfully experiences within my own self. Now, if those words were being spoken by Ramana, they would not be spoken by Ramana in that way anyway. But then they would be more palatable. But just to hear somebody saying there's nobody there, who is there to realize? It sounds fine, and it does catch quite a few people, especially those people who have not really entered into the experience of seeing, but who are more sort of switched on by this type of talk that sounds so comprehensive that there's nothing to do. And you have to be careful here, because it can be very, very attractive to the ego to feel there's nothing you need to do. And what about ego? There is no ego. Ego does not exist. And yet at the same time in your life, this is very clear that some egoic identity is present, denying its own egoity. This is very dangerous play for me. So in one point I can say the words, as far as words are concerned, is true largely, but they don't equate to the experience itself. And so in the end, it's the experience that matters, not the teaching. A teaching is completely useless unless there are practitioners who somehow has recognized or has grasped the teachings so that they become experience. Otherwise, you cannot just keep believing something. It has to be also experience. So this is one of my points that we started to rub against each other a little bit. Of course, what the Neo-Advaita groups, the ones who I have met, what they say, something is refreshing about it, because they like myself also point to the immediacy of truth, that it is here, it is what we are. The difference is I don't expect people to get it only like this and that it stays. Many people have come to that profound state of recognition inside themselves, but it seems to be momentary. It doesn't last. And then they feel like, oh, my mind came back in. Of course it's going to come back in. We've been living for quite a long time with in the company with mind. So it's not going to just vanish. It's going to come back, and it's good that it comes back, because if you have fully understood, then the mind cannot come back. It cannot cause anything by coming back. When it comes back, it will be coming back now as a devotee to the heart. It cannot be coming back to intimidate the heart if the heart has really understood the message, you see. So the very fact that people say, yeah, will the mind come back? or that it comes back but it doesn't really exist. I said, no, if it doesn't exist, it doesn't effectively come back. Experientially, there's no coming back. You see, so this is another point. When it is clearly understood inside the heart, it is a confirmed experience, you see. And then thereafter, if the mind feeling comes back, it is understood that that is just somehow the play of waves on the surface of the ocean. The ocean being, which is now not a belief anymore, but a confirmed truth, remains without any, it's not upset by any play on the surface of the being, such as the movement of emotion, of thought projections, or any kind of other kind of phenomena, whether you may call it depression and so on. This is redundant. This is finished now for that. That is as far as the Advaita, Neo-Advaita, apparently Neo-Advaita movement are concerned. We can talk more about that. If we go back to the perspective of what we call traditional Advaita Vedanta, there are many practitioners equally and very sincere in their practice. There are many people in this field who try as best as they can to follow Ramana's teachings in the heart. For the most part, they approach with tremendous integrity the inquiry. What I've found, however, is that there seemed to be almost a dedication to the practice, and I'm wanting to see the fruit of the practice more, because you can get tied into a kind of practice and the practice itself becomes the fruit. And I've seen people who enjoy immensely to go and sit in Virupaksha cave or, Skanda ashram or something like this. And I've been there myself. It is a beautiful space to sit. But if it is only about sitting in a cave, you cannot spend, well, some people can, but not most people are not going to spend the rest of their lives in a cave. And I'm thankful for that, because if you come out from the cave and find that you come out from yourself, then I don't find that that is really the experience that Ramana is pointing to. Any experience of silence cannot be a silence that is being kept by anyone. It has to be the silence which is synonymous with the self or the being itself. It's just there. Nobody's keeping silent. When that is fully discovered, then there's a silence to the background and foreground of being, whereby even if you are to shout or to speak loudly or to act very, visually loudly, there's still a silence emanating from your presence. You're not a keeper of silence, and you're not a keeper of peace. You're not a peacekeeper necessarily. You have no roles, no labels. Nevertheless, there's a profound emanation of peace and silence about you, and this is detectable by all beings who have a sensitivity, irrespective of what their religious persuasion or background is. It is something that is predating religion. It is the energy field that is somehow emanating out of pure presence, like that. So I'm not just talking about sitting in cave. Also, there are people who are meditating. They again also can get into what I call the trap of meditation, which is to be just meditating. One should find out who is the meditator and who is meditating for what purpose and who will benefit from the meditation, you see. Is it the self that is meditating? Is it the mind that is meditating? Is it the body that is meditating? Or is there another factor which is like the combination of the self and conditioning that is doing the meditation? These things are very important to discover. So I am only speaking out so that we are not just parroting a teaching without really going into the real significant pointers to that teaching. So these are the discrepancies I've noticed. By all means, Sri Ramana Maharshi, he encouraged people to continue with the practice that feels most comfortable for themselves, but he kept on reminding, find out who is practicing, and for what purpose. Who is the practicer itself? If you are one who feels, inquiry is not for me, more surrender is for me. I remember one statement he said also, that you must surrender, the one who surrenders also. And that sometimes took a longer time for people to digest. What is he talking about? Because, of course, if the surrenderer surrenders everything, surely that's enough. Who is going to surrender the surrenderer? But it was such a powerful scooping out to say even the surrenderer, if it doesn't surrender itself, only survives as a surrenderer who having surrendered everything else except himself. So these final steps have to be taken, and the swifter the better. Don't be dedicating 6 months, 1 year to any practice. If you say that, the thing is that if you say I want to spend the next 6 months to do self-inquiry or to do, bhakti yoga or jnana yoga, it's going to take you at least 6 months, because the mind works like that. It's almost effectively like giving it a visa, a 6 months visa. It's not going to go home early. So I want people to really understand that, and this is why I said actually somewhere between the halfway mark between the traditional Advaita teaching and practices and the Neo-Advaita movement. The freshness of the Advaita standpoint, the Neo-Advaita standpoint, along with the focus, the depth, and the commitment of the traditional Advaita practitioners will produce some good fruit. What is the fruit that we're talking about? Steadfastness in the self, effortlessness, effortless conviction, even more than conviction, direct experience, unshakable, irrefutable knowledge, where the knowledge and the beingness, they are the same thing. This will be the outcome of that inquiry, which has been refreshed like that. So I am not dismissing either movement or either practices, but just saying that these are the common mistakes that are made by both. There are many people who it seems as though to say, but there's nothing to do, nobody there to get it, so on, goes right to the very core of Advaita, but it only seems to go there at on a mental level. There are many things that we can seem to understand mentally, that when you try to practice them, you cannot fulfill them through practice. So it's easy to make the mistake of grasping and say, oh yeah, there's only that. But life, being wise and beautiful, will always confront you and show and expose that your practice is not complete. Because if you say there's nobody there at all, but then next minute you're suffering from the breakup of your relationship or the loss of money or something like this, then it shows you each time that there's still someone there. There's still this sense of personal presence behind the whole thing, pretending to be a non-presence or a non-entity or something like this. So I just said be mindful of that.
So it's possible for anyone who is on these paths, traditional Advaita or Neo-Advaita, to realize themselves?
It is possible, but it is not as easy as the Neo-Advaitists they pretend it is, or they claim it is. I have not seen anybody who has come from that who I feel they have done it. You understand? I feel there's many people who think they have done it, but the smell is still there. I don't say it's not possible. I don't want to limit anything, because there are some beings who are really ready for that, who all they need is that final step, that final push. And that seeing is just, all they need is to hear that, and something will pop right into place. But they're rare, and you cannot turn that into a technique. they will be one-offs. For the most part, what Neo-Advaita standpoint is saying, that if there's only the truth, all else is only ideas about the truth, shaped out of ill-conceived identity, right? But that's true. But are you apart from that identity? Have you come out of it? You see? Are you out of its grip? So Ramana was not concerned about, people getting things only intellectually. He wanted you to get it right through and through, to understand it, where the old you, shaped out of conditioning and ill-conceived concepts, was completely merged, or either you can say that it thinned out completely, it vanished, or that it merged inside the heart and became one unitive being or something. You see? So both the Neo-Advaita practitioner and the traditional Advaita self-inquiry practice, they can both get it, depend upon the sincerity. The sincerity and also the openness. You see? Because it seems a bit ridiculous that something which is so simple and so clear is found to be difficult, and the only difficulty that stands in the way, the only thing that stands in the way, is the ego itself. And so it's no use one saying, oh, there's no such thing as ego, and then clearly, like we say, the ego cannot smell its own breath. So you're denying the sense of ego, yet at the same time you exude ego. Your odor is ego. So I don't think it is good. I don't think that these people, after a while anyway, they give it up. Not the ego, they give up the claim, because it becomes unbearable. If you're making a claim about something which is not true thoroughly, after a while you're going to have to give it up, because it become a suffering for you. You see? Only the truth. It takes tremendous energy to be the ego. It takes no energy to be the self. So the fruit of that correct inquiry is, at the end, you're again in your effortless being. Not pretending, not keeping up, not sounding great in front of your spiritual friends, but all those are gone for you. You're not the same old, mind is not the same old regime anymore. It's been completely baptized inside the heart, the energy of the heart, and it's pure again. They're working in pure, perfect synchronicity.
You had mentioned something like those in the path of traditional Advaita tend to take themselves too seriously. Can you expand on that?
I was just joking, really, not so much. They do sometimes take themselves too seriously. I said this because I met a number of them who was arguing fiercely, and saying that, it's not so easy like you say. I said, it's true. It's easier than I say. You understand? It's not even easy or hard. It's just is. And if you insist that only a practice can reveal that which a practice cannot block, then you create these artificial barriers and distances, actually. I'm not saying that there should be no need for practice. Practice is going to be necessary. Practice is authentic up to a point, but only as is necessary. I gave the example that if your car has not been driven for a while and now the battery is dead and you need to go to work, you're going to have to push start it. If you don't have somebody to help you in another way, you have a few people around, you have to push start it, and that push start is effort. And you're going to push and and boom, as soon as it fires up, you can stop pushing. And in the same with the self, in the beginning you're going to be pushing with some effort. Pushing means effort, because the mind comes in and distorts your intention, and brings in doubts and resistances and so on. And there's not such any person who is exempt from that type of attack, So resistances will come, maybe this is not my right path, especially if the path is right for you. You start to feel this is not good, this is too heavy, it's very mental, and a lot of different resistances come. And you cannot just fend them off with just some parroting of some teaching. Although I'm not really just making a joke of that. I mean, there are people who genuinely understand it at a mental level, intellectual conviction, the whole business of the Advaita, Neo-Advaita outlook. They understand it. But the understanding itself is mental, and it's not enough. They have not want to do it. They denounce practice. They denounce, obviously, ego and identity. And these people, many of them have families, and they're hell inside their families. Some of them, they are so tight. It's like they put people off spirituality because people see them and they're so tight they cannot hug because, that's kind of emotional, and they just close themselves down. That's a big sadness for me to hear about that. Because they feel, no, they've got to be so rigid, and it just gives off the feeling that they're trying to keep something up. That's not true. Because there's a peace about truth. You're relaxed, you're comfortable with yourself, and you're comfortable with other beings. You're not, you don't have to put up a shield in front of anybody, You can see all the different perspectives, and you can converse in a very beautiful way for the sake of, light seeing, and converse on these levels to open up and to bring light to areas that are previously kept in shadow and darkness, and set the prisoners free, set the captives free. Isn't it? You have to set the captives free, otherwise what it is? We're not here to just debate and to confront. Confront when it's time to confront, but pour light upon what is held in the shade, like that. So that is important for me, that people are given the chance to really look and to examine in an authentic way. To just deny, if you're only denying, this doesn't, then effectively you're in another kind of belief system. Don't do this. No, why? Because it doesn't exist. It's not enough. Even children don't accept that type of training. But many adults do. We're living on rumors. But we are here now speaking about direct experience, understanding also. And it's sadly missing here. Either it's been replaced by sophistication of thought, posing as real knowledge, or it's altogether disregarded, you see. But understanding brings light and space again to people. It gets rid of superstition, suspiciousness, doubt, ignorance. All of this is washed clean by the soap of perfect understanding and true knowledge. You see, about the Advaita traditional point, they themselves are more consistent. They are willing to face the often cathartic reactions that come up when you are onto a kind of what I would call some deep-rooted tendencies as you begin to bring light towards those areas. Things start to come up, you start to feel uncomfortable, and maybe this is what many of these people who are practicing Neo-Advaita are afraid of, these cathartic reactions, because you don't know when it's going to stop. But it's a genuine response to looking deeply into the truth. And you burp up the stale energies, whatever is not in service to the truth, they start to come to the surface. Like I say, if there's an earthquake in the ocean, the bubbles are coming from the bottom, they come to the top, they pop and they disappear, they don't go down. So something happens powerfully, And what happens is that the bubbles of discontent, of doubt and fear and resistance, they're coming to the surface, they pop. And they create a little bit, somehow, a bit of noise. But then the teacher, and you should, if you're able to be, find a teacher in whose presence your heart feels comfortable, feels good. Even if you feel uncomfortable, it can be a good discomfort. Some people know how to read these things. They feel a little bit challenged, but they know on some level this is very good for me. Stay in this place and bathe in the light and the presence of such a teacher or something, who will guide you beyond the pitfalls of the ego and to the safe place where you go beyond these fears and suspiciousness, superstition, arrogance, egotism, all these things. They create very, very they create trouble inside the being. The teacher has the power and the grace and the authority to drive out these forces, or to help you to see them and to walk side by side with you as you evict them through your own authority of seeing. So I encourage those people who are more of the traditional perspective now, don't to be afraid also. On a number of occasions, myself, I have had to push to throw a grenade in the pram. As I said, sometimes you have to do that. You have to throw a grenade into the nursery. Nursery mean what? Very delicate concepts. Too protective. So I throw a grenade in there. You see? And it's not a very nice image, but it blows up the place. And then somehow, when the air clears, then you're getting into a freshness, you see. And it's very important that in authentic seeing as well too, sometimes you feel some burning, you feel a fire, something, sometimes, not always. But you know something is going, you're losing your sense of, oh, I know what's going on. You really don't know anything what's going on. And that really is a blessed state. Surrender to it, just be open and you become like a child again. You see, the mind wants to know what's going on. And the master says, not your business, keep quiet. You see? You've had enough time to know what's going on, still you don't know what's going on. Now you keep quiet. You see? And like this, peace can return again to the being. Like that.
Seems like the most important thing is on this path is to have a genuine urge for truth, and also to be with a master who has gone beyond.
If you have a genuine urge for truth, then life will arrange the right master for you. If you don't have a genuine, you may have an urge, but maybe it has some selfishness, has some different things also. It may still bring you to a very, very good master also. Nobody can say about these things. But if you have a sincere wish or urge to discover the truth, then you don't need to worry. Your path will be fine. You'll meet somebody who will meet somebody, know somebody, and the next minute you know you're sitting in somebody's front room, bathing in wisdom. Because there's some people who are on the road for a very, very long time. And there are others, they just walk off the street and they're walking into the room of nirvana itself. So nobody can know ahead of time. And ultimately it's a win-win situation. Everybody has to come home at some point. It's just a question of time.
What would you say to someone who's listening to this talk and who is on either of these paths, and now maybe as a result of this talk is kind of questioning like their own...
Questioning is good. Questioning is good. Initially it might make you bring in a bit of confusion, but this just means that something is opened up again. maybe it was tightening up a bit too early in the wrong direction. So now it opens up again, some air gets inside it, some breathes a little bit, and you have to bear these things. You have to be strong enough to bear these things. Otherwise, because you cannot be a wimp and find the truth, you have to, have a bit of muscle. And so sometimes you get knocked about a bit, but you get up. Like a little child, look how weak they are. But they have the urge to walk. And how many times they're going to fall down? So many times. But they don't cry, oh, I'm going to fall down again. They just keep doing it until they go through. And this is easier. Because it's not your mind in a way that is stirred into the desire for truth. Is a deeper movement. And it means that once you feel this movement, the whole universe is coming to serve you, actually. But also there's something else inside that mix that is going to try and, come up with resistances, which is some of the food you've swallowed over the years also, and you're not quite sure if it's good or bad, and this mix is going to be in the mix as well. But then you must exercise your powers of discernment and you see, move through all of this quickly. Come home and enjoy the rest of your life. It says when they ask, after you realize the self, then what happens? They said, well, the rest of your life is to enjoy. But the sage's enjoyment is not like other people's enjoyment. They're not enjoying going around doing foolish things. Their joy is just really, I would say, it's more to see the beings coming awake to that recognition themselves. But I understand fully that the beingness is just joy. Everything it does, even if it's sick or whatever it is, it's still a joy underlies, and it's greater than any other manifestations. It's just unstoppable. This joy, this inner space, this. I don't know if joy is the word. Joy is not a bad word, because everything feels so delightful. Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Mooji.
Thank you.